That's an issue in the Sundays this morning. We'll review what he says and what they've printed with Ian Dale, the radio man, Kate Hardcastle, the businesswoman, and the performer Dane Baptiste. Satnam Sanghera writing expressly for BH about all those issues in the public conversation. And let's just see what the reaction is from our three guests. We're delighted to welcome the comedian Dane Baptiste. His show Bamus is on iPlayer. Welcome to BH, Dane.
Hi there, how are you guys? Good?
Very good. And the LBC presenter and author of Why Can't We All Just Get Along, Ian Dale, is back. Hello, Ian.
Good morning.
And the business consultant, Kate Hardcastle, is in Newcastle for us again this morning. Hello, Kate.
I'm not in Newcastle, but good morning to you all.
Now let me guess, you're in Yorkshire.
I'm in Yorkshire, yes.
Never before confused. Let me go back to what we've just heard, a sort of heartfelt cry, really, from Satnam. Dane, are you impressed with the argument that Britain can't talk about race?
I am impressed with the argument, really, and I really feel like it's a part of a larger conversation about race, which doesn't just pertain to the hostility within race relations within the UK.
And is it fair to say that you've made a career out of testing this line, Bamus and your tour as well? You enjoy finding the public, well, basically reaction and humour from talking about this issue in public.
Yeah, definitely. I think part of my body of work kind of stems from the same journey. I think most descendants of immigrants and most people that would be considered from the minority in the UK do to rationalise their existence is to try and find humour within the whole paradigm of race relations in the UK. It's just one of the only ways you're able to process it and continue to thrive in a society where it's sometimes very subtly and sometimes very overtly suggested that you might be inferior based on the colour of your skin. So, it's been very useful to me. And also just due to the fact that I guess, this is a conversation that I've had amongst my peers and contemporaries, and a conversation that's continued despite not being a part of a larger social dialogue for a very long time. So in many ways, I feel like now this what appears to be a very intensified conversation has been happening amongst the black and brown members of this country for a very long time. So just now that I think the whole country as a whole has been now becoming privy to a dialogue that's been happening for a very long time.
Ian, in the Sunday Telegraph, it's quoting Dame Jenny Murray, formerly the host of Woman's Hour, of course. She wrote a column for Saga magazine saying we need to face up to the past. There's too much nostalgia about empire. So linking her article to Satnam's essay for us, do you agree that empire is a trigger?
It absolutely is for some people, but I think we've got to get over this view that we don't talk about race in this country. Some people would say, well, we've talked about nothing else for the last year apart from race and COVID with the aftermath of the Black Lives Matter movement. I think we do talk about it an awful lot, but do we talk about it in the right way? Now, she's saying that we need to come to terms with empire in the way that the Germans have come to terms with their past. She says we've got a lot of lessons to learn from them. It's a wonderful German word called Vergangenheitsaufarbeitung, effectively coming to terms with your past. Well, this is a place for education. It's a place to learn about where we've come from and how did we get here. That's what surely history education in schools ought to be all about. And maybe there does need to be a bit of a rebalancing of the curriculum. But I thought the most important part of the essay was the last sentence where he says you need to take sides and despise the opposition in the way you'd despise any football team playing your own. Everyone loses as a result. That's kind of the whole point of my book, where we've lost all sense of nuance. We all belong to a tribe and we can't see that the other side might possibly have an argument and we might be able to learn from that argument. Everything's a shade, everything's black and white. There are no shades of grey. And the internet has really fed that. And the internet has given, it's been brilliant in many ways, but it's given some very evil people a platform.
So, Kate, let's round off our conversation, turn to the press this morning, but I'll just give you the final word on what we're talking about. You can pick from Dane or from Ian and back one of them. Either that why can't we all just get along? There's no nuance in public conversation. Or from Dane, this is a conversation that has been had among black and brown Britons that is now spreading to the whole population. It's high time.
I wouldn't be doing justice to my own values if I picked a side. It's about two ears and one mouth and listening in that order. And while social media can create the sound bites, we need the stories. And this is about listening, it's about understanding, and it's about being respectful. So I'd like to just sit in my own camp of I want to listen more, I want to learn more.
OK, well,
see, Paddy, your question there illustrates the problem. You asked Kate to pick a side. We don't have to pick sides. You can actually agree in part with both sides.
OK, no, thank you very much. I just wanted to get the full range of all three of you, and thank you, Ian, for picking me up there. So let's start with you, Kate, on today's press. Let's link the story to the Sunday Mirror, page 11. Polls apart on the Royals. Polling shows a generational divide in attitude to monarchy.
I don't think that's my story, Paddy. I'm sorry.
It's actually mine.
OK, well, off you go, Ian. Off you go.
Well, I thought this was really interesting because obviously younger generations do have different views on things, but the split here is amazing. Half of under 44s want the monarchy abolished. Only 10% of the over 55s are on Team Sussex. Now, going back to our last conversation, I remember I asked a royal commentator a question the other day saying, can't there be right on both sides in this? And he said, well, that's the best question I've been asked on this, because there is the Sussexes can absolutely believe that they have 100% right. The Buckingham Palace can believe that they're 100% right. The truth lies somewhere in between. And if the twain is ever to meet, then they've got to recognise that the other side might just have a bit of a point. But this poll is so stark in the generational divide, and I suppose it reflects a wider divide in society. And I'm sure we're going to come on to the events of last night. And I think, again, there you can see that kind of divide.
That's back to where we started our programme with the scenes on Clapham Common. We are going to get to that on all the front pages. But, Kate, let me return to one of your main picks for us this morning. The Sunday Times, pay before eating when restaurants open doors after lockdown.
And this is the idea that a lot of restaurants have had to face up to 20% cancellations, no-shows, when they're doing day-to-day trade. But as we know, the significant on-off lockdowns has really hurt a lot of our hospitality, retail, traditional bricks and mortar stores. Whilst we've seen an online boom, restaurants haven't been able to pivot their businesses easily. So the concern is, whilst they are inundated with requests for bookings when life can go back to the next normal, they want to make sure those seats are filled, and there are bums on those seats, and they want to therefore ask for some form of deposit or payment up front. It makes good sense. I think it's time to understand we should do this. We should be respectful to these businesses.
Owners are fed up with no shows by customers who make several bookings, then choose one on the night. Dane, do you get fed up with public no shows?
I mean, I do. It's obviously not conducive to business for people to be no shows, but at the same time, I do recognise the autonomy of each individual. I do definitely agree with Kate's sentiments so far as being able to provide provisions, because it's going to be a very crucial time post-lockdown for small to medium enterprises, particularly within hospitality, to be able to recover lost revenue as a result of lockdown. I would state as a point of principle, though, that I would hope that those same earnings are passed on in earnest to employees and the actual people that make the hospitality and leisure industries tick, which are the workers which may have been furloughed or, have had their wages and salaries cut off as a result of lockdown. So I do hope that, people do adhere to it. I don't think no shows are very good, but I think at the same time we have to take into account the humanitarian aspect of the fact that people are going to be returning to lockdown. And while it may seem like a nice idea for people to be celebrating by going to beer gardens and restaurants and the like, I think there'll be a lot of personal recovery. I think some people will be prioritising their health, reconnecting with family members. And sometimes if you've not seen your granny for a long time, you might miss your reservation at dinner. So I hope there's lenience on both sides.
Last July, says this report that Kate's picking, the celebrity chef Tom Carriage publicly railed against selfish no-shows after a group of 27 failed to appear. Ian, would you pay in advance if you made a booking?
I wouldn't like the thought of doing it, but I do recognise that this is a real problem for many restaurants. We saw it when we had the Eat Out to Help Out scheme last summer, and I think it will happen again. I think if a restaurant is being hit by that, then they have every right to say, well, you need to give a credit card number when you book, and if you don't show up, or if you don't give us at least 12 hours notice of a no-show, we will charge you X, Y or Z. Customers wouldn't like that, but I think most people would understand why they've done it.
Kate, give us the Observer's take on the beer gardens.
Well, there's certainly been a lot of interest in those bookings, and that's the side that businesses want to make sure they're maximising the value. So we've seen a huge uptake in people making bookings for beer gardens the minute they can get back out there. It doesn't matter what the weather's going to be. They're going to be sat there cradling their beers. And I think, again, this is the idea that people are believing that with the vaccine scheme in process that they can get back out, socialise with friends, and the beer garden's obviously the first place to be able to do that because of the open air spaces. I think just to go back on the idea of reservations as well, it's really important to understand for small businesses, a lot that fulfil the hospitality community, that 20% no-show could be the difference, could be the make or break this time. They just don't have that in their profit buffer to be able to live with. So I think we can expect to see it from a lot of businesses, and I think we as consumers need to understand they're not doing it to be awkward or feel uncomfortable or take away any of our rights. They're just doing it because they want to survive. This is a last chance for many of our businesses in hospitality.
I add on to that as well, because I totally agree with Kate, and I think, given some of the economic flux taking place in this country now, especially with how we see trade deals with Europe precipitate, we want to provide as much support to small and medium enterprises and businesses as possible. However, myself personally, particularly on the subject of hospitality, I think one way we could effectively subsidise that is also continuing the work done by people like Marcus Rashford. Is where in France, there is legislation which prevents small to medium enterprises throwing away food. I would very much welcome a Eat Out to Help Out scheme continuing to provide maybe sustenance for children that are malnourished within this nation. I think lockdown has allowed for a lot of kids to fall even further below the poverty line, and a nation which has so much esteem linked to its imperial history should be able to feed its own children. Okay. So I said at the same time, while we're supporting small to medium enterprises, we should be supporting the community as well.
Those small to medium enterprises are actually some of the most supportive in the business community. And I think that's why we've got to celebrate the work that's been done by them, recognising that actually consumers are starting to push back and they want their businesses to be more responsible generally. Okay, great. Let's just get more ingredients in our mix here. You're listening to the BH News Review with Kate Hardcastle in Yorkshire, the LBC presenter and author Ian Dale, and the comedian Dane Baptiste. Ian, you promised to take us back to where our programme began, and everyone's got some press coverage of the Clapham Common incident, and you're going to start with the Observer's coverage on domestic violence.
Well, Sonia Soda has written an opinion piece, which is subtitled "Sarah Everard's death has forced us to reflect on how much we fail victims and that we have hardly begun to think about educating boys." And I think that's a really important point here. She says the focus remains on how women should protect themselves from violent men, not how to reduce male violence in the first place. And I think this is a very important point. And one of the ways I'm really concerned about the amount of pornography that 8, 10, 12-year-old boys consume in the way that, Paddy, when we were kids, I mean, that just wouldn't have been on the agenda at all. And I think they get a completely false idea of how men should treat women. Now, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how you stop boys looking at porn on their phones, because if you want to access it, if you know how to access it, it's very, very easy. But it is warping boys' minds, I think, not all boys, but many boys, about the role of women, about how you should respect women, and I think that is going to store up a lot of problems in the future. Now, we did, on the positive side, there is now relationships education in primary schools, which caused a lot of controversy when the government brought it in. But I don't know what the curriculum for that is, but I hope this is the sort of thing that is going to be covered.
Let's look at the other coverage. I've mentioned to you listening that if you go past the newsstand or socially distance or look online, the front pages are full of pictures. And in fact, Dane, you want to talk to us about the Kate, Princess, pictured in the Sunday Mirror, page 4 to 5. What does the paper say about her?
Yes, well, in a double-page spread, they have the Duchess of Cambridge making a very sombre visit to a candlelight vigil on behalf of Sarah Everard. So, it just kind of says that, she is in complete support and wants to pay her respects. And herself, her own experiences of finding the daunting task of walking as a lonely woman within streets of South London, I guess equally trying for even someone of her stature as well. I feel like it's a very good show of solidarity from the Duchess. However, I think to an extent there is somewhat of a distraction from us focusing on this regal aspect of the event rather than, the social and civil aspect of those who were not afforded the same status, how they've been treated by law enforcement at this protest.
OK, and then just I'll bring the sun to the table. Royal leaves flower tribute. Duchess visits shrine to murder victim Sarah. An emotional Duchess of Cambridge yesterday laid daffodils at a shrine to Sarah Everard. Now, let me turn to other issues being discussed in the papers. Now, I want to go to you, Kate, if you will tell us, please, about Dawn French, the Bricker of Dibley.
Yes, I'm really pleased to feel that I'm not alone. I just feel I've got to go back on that last point, Paddy, as the woman in the conversation, just to say what a very emotionally charged week it's been as a woman. And it's been very difficult to think as a mother today of 2 daughters and a son about how I can continue to educate and support my children, and how I, as a woman, have got to do what I can to make sure I keep the topic of how we feel as women, how our safety's sometimes should be there, that isn't there, the changes I've had to make to my life just to adjust and adapt. It's been a very emotionally charged week, and I'm thinking of everyone today who's got those feelings in the same way. But yes, I'm moving on to my secret habit, which I can now actually reveal on Radio 4. I can't believe I'm about to do this. I am a secret Lego builder, and I'm really pleased that I'm in good company. Dawn French is with me. She's been building those colourful bricks through lockdown. I've been embarrassed to say it. I'm sorry. It makes me sound, I don't know, maybe I should just be proud and celebratory, but it's the idea that you can actually chill out making these wonderful constructions with plastic building bricks. I've said it. It's out there.
Yeah, but I'm hearing support. Ian, are you a bricker?
Absolutely, I can come out as well.
Again.
Yeah, exactly. Lego was an intrinsic part of my childhood. It just feeds the imagination, doesn't it? Because you can start from scratch and build whatever you like. It's fantastic.
And Dane, can you tell us how to get over standing on a piece of it in bare feet? That seems to be the main problem with Lego. Much as it might be a fabulous thing, when you stand on one, it's like the end of days.
I mean, yeah, and I want to tell you that, after that happens to you, that the trauma will end the next day, maybe in a week, maybe in a year. But that's not the case, Paddy. You have to take it a day at a time and, kind of rebuild yourself, remind yourself that it's not your fault and that, this can happen. It happens to the best of us. The important thing is that we continue to have conversations with regards to Lego-based injuries and don't know.
What have you two created? Kate, what have you made that you're most proud of? Buckingham Palace, Tower of London?
I actually have a castle right in front of me that I built. I won't name the brand, but yes, it's with a very famous mouse in it. It took quite a while.
And Ian, what have you built in your life?
I used to build spaceships all the time.
Oh, a kind of Star Wars or USS Enterprise?
More like Starship Enterprise. Yeah, that was kind of my era with Captain Kirk, not the present incumbent.
Well, look, you've done an amazing job for us this morning. Happy Mother's Day to you, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you as well for picking up on Ian and Dane's thoughts. Very important to hear from you there. And Ian, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Dane, nice to meet you too. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. And happy Mother's Day, Mum.
Very wise. Very wise. Very wise, man.